2 weeks from today, I'll probably be recording a video post the first ODI between West Indies and the Netherlands. For those who are regular viewers of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you'll know by now that I will be out there live and direct for every game of the ODI tour of the Netherlands. That's ODI 1, 2, and 3. But you know what we haven't done? You know what I haven't done? We haven't done a reaction video to the announcement of the ODI squad to tour both the Netherlands and Pakistan. So before we fast forward into what may or may not go on, let's talk about that squad. Walk with me.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. So, well. As I said at the top of the show, 2 weeks from now, West Indies will be in the Netherlands, having played game one with 2 more games to go for their brief tour of the Netherlands before heading straight to Pakistan. My name is Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And welcome to not a cuss-out session, but just let's call it a cuss-out reflection on the announcement of the ODI squad to tour both the Netherlands and the Pakistan. Those of you who follow our Twitter feed, let me just get that up on screen now. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Carib Cricket. You can find us on Facebook. Just search Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You have to request to join and I'll let you in. But for those of you who follow us on Twitter, you would have seen that I went to the press conference with Chairman of Selectors Desmond Haynes and the Director of Cricket Jimmy Adams. I asked a couple of questions of my own, particularly on Evan Lewis, which I'll get to later in the midst of this particular show. And you know what we do when I go to the press conferences, I always write out like a live feed of all the key points that are being discussed in the press conference, because I really think it's important to be as transparent as possible for the fans and let you see how it was said live without any kind of spin being put on it from any kind of outlets or whatever it might be. Just this is literally what they said in the press conference. You take your opinion from it. But as I said, I'm Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Before I get properly into it, because I say this all the time, but we really need to get better at this. And in lieu of the fact that I'm going to be in the Netherlands, it's probably more pertinent than ever. If you would like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast and what we do, remember, we don't have a sponsor. We've rarely, if ever, had a sponsor. Every now and again, we enter into a partnership with someone, but we don't have a running sponsor. And if you'd like to support what we're doing at the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you can support us. Go to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket, and you can support us for as little as $2, whatever your currency is, pound, dollars, rupees, etc., a month, to just help us keep us going and cover the running costs and whatnot. Also, big news. I got the email today, the new hoodies. We've previously done a merch run where we've done the Caribbean Cricket Podcast shirts. They've all sold out. We'll do a new run of those some point later in the year. But we've done a run of hoodies in maroon only. When I did the survey of fans and I asked you what you wanted, everyone said maroon. So we've got a batch of maroon hoodies coming in. They get delivered tomorrow morning to me. We've got them in medium, large, extra large, and I think double XL. But get them whilst you can. Already I've had another order come in today, which I've got to ship to New Zealand. So these are for both here in the UK and abroad. If anybody who's watching this is going to the Netherlands, I'll probably bring a batch of them along with me to the Netherlands. If you want to buy one from me in person as well, get your Caribbean Cricket Podcast hoodies in maroon. Yes, maroon indeed. They're good and ready to go. I'll take a photo of myself in one of them tomorrow, so you can actually see exactly what they look like in case you want to be swayed. But anyways, enough of the admin. Let's get right into it. I don't want to keep this video too long. Usually half an hour is where we go with these cuss out introspection videos. So the West Indies last week announced their squad to tour the Netherlands, and let me get it up on the screen for you. The squad was announced as follows. Nicholas Pooran, captain, of course. Kieron Pollard has retired from international duty. Go back to our YouTube channel to find the video, the call-in show that we did for Kieron Pollard. Shea Hope, vice captain. Nkrumah Bonner, Shamar Brooks, Casey Carty, international debut pending. Akil Hussain, Alzari Joseph, Brandon King, Sherman Lewis out of Grenada, Carl Mayers, Anderson Phillip, Rovman Powell, Jaden Seals, Romario Shepherd, and Hayden Walsh Jr. That's an interesting squad, isn't it? There's a lot of talking points. And in fact, let me address some of the things that were said in the press conference about some absentees. So Shimron Hetmyer told Cricket West Indies selectors that he is unavailable. He's just had a baby. Obviously, he's in the IPL at this moment in time. He flew home from Rajasthan Royals to go witness the birth of his child. He's flown back to the IPL, but in amidst all that, we don't know the exact timing. Shimron sent an email to Cricket West Indies selectors and said that he is unavailable to tour the Netherlands and the Pakistan. We assume for paternity reasons. I mean, maybe I'll do a separate video. Not on that, because Shimron is 100% entitled to spend time with his family. But for those of you who follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I raise concerns about the optics of it all. I will never, ever deny a cricketer the right to go and spend time with their loved ones. We forget that people can burn out. Your family is important. And lots of you came back at me and was saying things like, yeah, it makes sense that he'd go back to the IPL because Rajasthan Royals are his employers and so on and so forth. And I hear that. I just think the optics look bad. I think the optics look bad to announce I'm flying home from the IPL to witness the birth of my baby. But don't worry, guys. I'll be back for the rest of the IPL. And in the midst of that, you send West Indies an email saying, but I'm not playing for you lot, though, because I'm going to spend time with my family. I get it, and I understand that family comes first, and I would never deny that, but the optics look terrible. That's all I'm going to say on that for now. I could go much longer. You lot know what I'm like. I could dive deeper into it, but the optics look bad. Evan Lewis is out, failed a fitness test. Why am I silent? I'm silent because I've done a cuss out video on Shimron Hetmyer about when he failed his third fitness test, right? That means a cuss out video is overdue on Evan. It's overdue, and people have every right to be sending me messages or jumping into the DMs and saying, so how comes you ain't cussing out Evan then? He's just as bad as Shimron when it comes to failing fitness tests. And you're right. Although he's not just as bad. Shimron's got 3 in his locker. Evan's now got 2. Evan failed in 2020 when we went to Sri Lanka, and he was dropped from the squad because of failing then. Just over 2 years later, they're announcing again that Evan Lewis has failed a fitness test and therefore isn't eligible for selection. When I was in the press conference, I wanted to kind of hone down on the specifics. So I said to Jimmy, I asked Jimmy the question. I said, Jimmy, specifically, when did Evan Lewis fail? Did he fail when taking the test for his franchise, which would be Trinidad and Tobago Red Force, before going to the IPL, or did he fail when he went to the IPL? And Jimmy's exact answer, I'm paraphrasing, but his basic answer was Evan had some kind of knock or injury before going to the IPL. So Cricket West Indies made arrangements with his franchise, which one's his? Is it Lucknow? It's his Lucknow. I think it's Lucknow. Jimmy said that they made arrangements with Evan's franchise to take the mandated Cricket West Indies test in IPL, and Evan failed it. I don't know what to say, people. I don't know what to say. When players have a contract with Cricket West Indies as Evan does, and you're still failing fitness tests, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and it raises question marks about whether Evan feels it's deserved or not. It raises question marks, and rightly so, about your level of commitment and desire as a professional. Now, Evan may well say that there's more to the story and there's mitigating circumstances, but similar to Shimron, the optics look terrible. You are an established, I'm speaking specifically to Evan here, you are an established West Indian international player, a devastating opener in both ODI cricket and T20 cricket, someone we can't afford to play without, if we're being honest. We can't afford to play without Evan Lewis. That's how crucial he is to the makeup of our side. And here we are again, his second failed fitness test in basically 2 years. And that's before I even get onto the fact that Evan also has a history of pulling out of West Indies squads for personal reasons. I don't know what those personal reasons are, so I'm not getting onto him and saying, how dare you pull out for personal reasons? But when you add up everything, the myriad of personal reasons when he's pulled out of squads, added together with failed fitness tests, it paints a picture for Evan as someone who is not wholly, or overly, I should say, committed to the West Indian cause. Now, I caveat that by saying I think Evan Lewis is a fantastic player. Evan Lewis would be in my team 10 times out of 10. And Evan Lewis is one of my favourite players in the current iteration of West Indies white ball cricket. So none of this is about me not liking Evan Lewis as a cricketer. We've had him on the podcast. If you've never listened to our episode with Evan Lewis, go wherever you listen to your podcast, search Caribbean Cricket Podcast, go listen to our episode with Evan Lewis, and you'll find out from the way that Santoki and I interviewed him that we are fans of Evan Lewis. But it would be remiss of me to let my personal fandom and appreciation of Evan Lewis as a cricketer get in the way of some cold, hard analysis. And that cold, hard analysis is, does Evan Lewis, is he fully committed to West Indies cricket? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I really don't know. But the question must be asked. And as for, like I say, for those people who've been getting into my act saying, you need to do a video on this because you went in on Shimron, so why aren't you going in on Evan? Yeah, you're right. You're right. So look out for that. I will do a video deep diving into it at a later date. But again, he's not available. It looks bad. Jason Holder has been rested for workload purposes, and that makes sense. If you follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast closely and look at previous videos, both myself and Santoki have spoken about this. Santoki and I have been speaking about this privately on the WhatsApp, etc. West Indies itinerary from now till the end of 2022 is insane. Jason Holder is effectively our only all-format player. He has to be rested. After this Netherlands-Pakistan thing, we play Bangladesh in a test series. Obviously, Jason's going to be selected for that. After Bangladesh, India come for T20s and ODIs. Obviously, they'll want Jason around for that. Then New Zealand come for T20s and ODIs. Then CPL. Obviously, Jason probably likely to be captain of the Barbados Royals. Then after CPL, what's after CPL? Is it World Cup? Is it World Cup after that? Obviously, Jason's going to go to that. Then we go to Australia for some T20s and the Test series. So Jason, if Jason isn't rested, he's just going back to back to back to back to back to back to back. He's going to burn out. So it makes total sense to rest Jason Holder, and they're going to have to rest him later on in the year as well, because otherwise our best cricketer in terms of an all-format cricketer will get burnt out. So that makes total sense. So those were the kind of players who, for want of a better reason, would otherwise have been selected, but are not featured in this West Indies ODI squad. So then we need to kind of look at the squad that has been selected. And what I'm going to try and do is I want to try and break this down through the roles that people play in the side and where the question marks come. So Shai Hope will obviously open, so there's nothing to discuss there. We know that. We know Shai Hope's white ball credentials. We don't need to talk much further on that. Obviously, before going to the Netherlands, some of these players will be playing one round of the 4-day West Indian Championship, which at the time of recording this begins tomorrow. So Shai Hope is in the Barbados Pride 4-day team. he will play in that 1 round game. I can't remember who Barbados are playing off the top of my head. He will play in maybe Windward's. He will play in that 1 round game and then fly out to the Netherlands straight after that. The question mark then is who will open alongside Shai Hope. Will it be Brandon King or will it be Carl Mayers? Now, Carl Mayers opened, if you remember, in the T20s versus England and had some success. He then came in for that last test match against England and was fantastic with the ball. Brandon King was the last person to open with Shai Hope in our ODI series versus India. He didn't come back with any meaningful returns, but it's obvious to me that one of King or Mayers will likely open with Shai Hope. If I had to predict right now, I'd probably say King, and that maybe Mayers will have a spot lower down in the order, because remember, Holder's not playing, and obviously Kieran Pollard has now departed the scene as well. So there are some all-rounder spots up for grabs, which means that it's not as pertinent to put Carl Mayers at the top of the order, because he can come down lower down. The only reason you might think about opening with Kyle is in the absence of an Evan Lewis, do you want an explosive opener at the top to take advantage in the power play, etc., etc. So that is an option to consider. Carl Mayers opening the batting, but we shall see. In terms of the 3 down to 6, Pooran obviously is a given. He's captained before. This isn't anything new for Nicholas. He's essentially being groomed for this for the better part of the last year and a bit by Kieran Pollard. So Pooran's ready for the captaincy. Whether in an ideal world Nicholas Pooran should be ODI and T20 captain is another thing, but I think it's an exceptional show of commitment from Nicholas Pooran to West Indies cricket. Remember, Nicholas Pooran is a T20 global franchise star. He don't need to play for West Indies. And any uncle that's listening is going, no, he don't need to play. In the modern context of world cricket, Nicholas Pooran don't need to play for West Indies. He could just survive on T20 money alone and only play T20s for West Indies. So believe it or not, it's actually a massive show of commitment to agree to the captaincy in a job where, let's face it, there's a greater chance of him being cussed out than being applauded. Because you see, if the defeats start coming, Pooran's going to get cussed out just like Pollard got cussed out. So this young man at the age of 26 has taken on a poison chalice, so to speak, and has by taking the ODI captaincy, he's committed himself to not being able to take some franchise gigs around the world as well. So kudos to Nicholas Pooran, and we'll see how he goes. Shamar Brooks keeps his place from a successful series versus Ireland, a not so successful series versus India. He rightfully keeps his place in the squad. Nkrumah Bonner went to India and just carried water. Whatever happens in the Netherlands, my belief is that Nkrumah Bonner has to. Sorry, I'm trying to move my mouse. My belief is that Nkrumah Bonner has to play versus the Netherlands. You can't carry him to the Netherlands and make him carry water again. What's the point? There are question marks, I think, about Nkrumah Bonner's selection for the ODI squad. Does he have the game to play international white ball cricket for West Indies? Who knows? Who really knows? We've seen that he's made his name in his international, since he returned back on the international scene, but particularly in rebel cricket, we've seen he's made his name by soaking up balls. You have to assume, and this has been intimated before by Desmond Haynes, that Bonner has been picked because of his ability to occupy the crease. What they are evidently hoping with Nkrumah is that he can combine occupying the crease with rotation of strike in the middle overs. Traditionally, historically, West Indies struggles with the bat in white ball has been our middle overs, whether T20s or whether ODIs. The middle overs section, we basically stagnate. And if we're lucky, we go up 4 and over and we just soak up dot balls after dot balls after dot balls. They are clearly identifying Brooks and Bonner, or Bonner, because it could be one or the other, to be that middle order accumulator. Keep the scoreboard ticking over, etc., and letting some power players get going either side of them. Bonner didn't play in India. My thing is he must play in the Netherlands, because otherwise Why carry him? And what's the long-term purpose here? Remember, the ODI World Cup is next year, 2023. So if you're gonna carry a 33-year-old in Bonner or even a 33-year-old Shamar Brooks to the World Cup next year, you need to know now. You need to build the evidence pool or from now to see whether they're worth persisting with. So Bonner should get a play. I can't give you my 11 just yet. This video isn't about me saying to you, and this is the 11 that should play in the first ODI versus the Netherlands. I'll probably do that, believe it or not. So I arrive in the Netherlands on the 30th of May. Don't be surprised if I drop a video on the 30th saying, right, this is the squad that I think should play in tomorrow's game, as a team that should play in tomorrow's game, and so on and so forth. But for now, I don't want to focus on that. I just want to analyze the squad that's been selected. Also in the middle order batters have been selected. Rovman Powell. That's the correct selection. From when Pollard announced his retirement, Powell was the obvious player to step into the breach. We've seen, let's call it the second or the third coming of Rovman Powell. And when I say that, I mean a cricketer who now seems to be at peace with his game, understand his game, and more importantly, has gone away and worked at his game. And he is reaping the benefits, particularly in the T20 circuit. We also saw some inklings of it in the last year in the T10 circuit. So Rovman, I think, deserves this. Lest we forget, when Ireland toured West Indies at the start of this year, what their warm-up game was against Jamaica Scorpions, and Rovman scored 80 odd off something like 60 balls or maybe 50 balls versus Ireland. So this is a body of work that Rovman has been building for some time now. So I think he is the right choice to come in and replace Pollard, and offers a like for like in the sense of what you wanted Pollard to do. So Powell will come in and do some power hitting whenever he comes to the crease, obviously play the situation. But also Powell offers some wily kind of medium pace bowling. So don't be surprised if Rovman doesn't get chuck the ball for 1 or 2 overs here and there, similar to Carl Mayers as well, depending on where they back Carl Mayers. So Powell's a no-brainer for me. That's a deserved selection. Casey Carty. Sorry, I take a swig of water there. I'm happy with the Casey Carty selection. I'm happy with it. So Casey Carty in last year's 50 over comp, I think he hit his maiden century. I should probably bring up my stats and my facts for this, you know. But Casey Carty hit his maiden century in last year's 50 over competition. If I've got that wrong, people, I'm sorry. I don't have my stat sheet in front of me for this recording. So obviously do comment below whilst watching this video and say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Casey's now 25. And for those who don't know the history of Casey Carty, he was part of that 2016 Under-19 World Cup winning side with Shimron Hetmyer, Alzari Joseph, and the likes of that. As ever in the Caribbean, it has taken Casey too long to cash in on his talent. Everyone in the Caribbean who properly studies cricket has known about Casey Carty's talent for quite a while now, but it has taken him time, as it does for every West Indian cricketer, too much time compared to their age mates in other international cricket arenas. It's taken Casey, well, now 6 years to reap the benefits, find his game, and show, I'm not even going to say consistency, because he's not even shown that yet, but shown that he might be somebody worth taking a gamble on. When England toured for the Test series, Casey played in the President's 11 and was impressive against England. I think he got a couple of 50s in both innings. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, people. I don't have my stat sheet in front of me. And from all reports from those who watched Casey against England in that warm-up game, they were like, okay, we can see that Casey is coming on now. His batting is coming on now. In fact, where is he? Desmond Haynes actually said about Casey, we were impressed with Casey and the way he goes about his innings. We saw several glimpses of his ability in the way he played against England earlier this year for the President's 11. We hope that by giving him this opportunity, he will recognise the importance of representing West Indies. We think he's a young batsman with great promise, and this is the kind of tour he can show, where he can show that he fits in. And it makes sense, with no disrespect to the Netherlands. It makes sense that if you're going to gamble on a wild card selection, that you do it versus the Netherlands. Casey does not have the numbers to justify or back up being selected for the West Indies. Go pull his numbers, people, whilst you're watching this. Off the top of my head, he's averaging like 25, okay, across however many games thus far in his career. To be averaging 25 at the age of 25 is poor, given the volume of games he's played. But his recent performances, and again, I say go back to last year's Super 50 and some of these President 11 games he's taken part in. And also remember, he was part of the white ball camp that took place a couple of months back, whilst players had gone off to the IPL and so on and so forth. So Casey is obviously someone where they've said, you are a rough diamond, let's work with you. And to be honest, for me, that's what we have to do in West Indies cricket. We do not have, let me take this off the screen for now. We do not have the regular conveyor belt of proven talent to say, right, let's go pick that man because he's currently averaging 37 and over the last 3 seasons has averaged 35, 37, 39. We don't have that. We don't have that. If we had that, then man would be in the side on a regular. And even when some of those guys do get in the side, they can't produce. So when you don't have that regular, proven conveyor belt, yes, to me, it makes sense that what you do then is you say, let's find the rough diamonds. Let's see where they've shown bits and pieces of body of work, which shows there must be some talent there. Let's work with it. That's what we have to do. And that's what Casey Carty is. My thing is this, though, similar to what I said about Nkrumah Bonner. Don't bother carrying Casey Carty all the way to the Netherlands to play 0 games. Because if he plays 0 games, what will you have learned? Yes, you can say, he was in the travelling camp and he was able to develop whilst playing with seasoned international batters like Hope and Mayers and Bonner and etc. Yes, you could say that. But what more would you have learned about him if he doesn't actually play an international match? Does that mean that Casey Carty gets in my starting ODI 11 versus the Netherlands? Probably not, actually. Because how does he? Looking at the side, who's he going to get in front of? He's the obvious batter to not pick. But like I say, if you don't pick him for at least 1 game, what can you take going forward? What can you say you've learned about him as a player? Because you're not surely going to play him in Pakistan for his debut. Surely not. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it versus the Netherlands. Moving on to the all-rounders position, I've briefly touched on Mayers already. I've spoke about Powell's ability to bowl. Mayers is a better bowler than Powell. It's going to be really interesting to see if Kyle Mayers plays where they play him. Are they going to use him to open? Are they going to use him lower down at like number 7 and instruct him that he's going to bowl maybe 5 overs, etc.? So it'll be very interesting to see how Kyle Mayers is used, and is he seen in the context of this side as an all-rounder more so than an out-and-out batter. So question marks over Kyle Mayers and his role, but very much deserved to have him in the ODI squad. I think that's a no-brainer. Romario Shepherd. Now, to me, that's a controversial pick. Romario Shepherd didn't play in the ODIs versus India. He wasn't there. Let me just double check that, actually. I do have those stats in front of me. Yeah. Romario Shepherd didn't play in the ODIs versus India. I would love to know why Romario Shepherd is in this ODI squad and Odean Smith isn't. To me, don't get me wrong, always balanced. To me, it's much of a muchness between Romario Shepherd and Odean Smith. But rationally speaking, Odean Smith played versus India in the ODIs and did all right. He played 2 matches, averaged 30 with the bat and averaged 22 with the ball, 3 wickets at 22 average apiece, and then 60 runs in 2 innings, so he averaged 30, right? That was in the last ODI series versus India. Romario Shepherd didn't play. So how has Romario Shepherd got in front of Old Dean Smith? When this was raised in the press conference, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Desmond, but Desmond said, looking at the composition of the all-rounders, they just felt that Romario Shepherd was the better fit than Old Dean, because there's already, I think Desi mentioned Powell being there, Mayers being there. He even mentioned Akil Hussain being there as an all-rounder because his batting is significantly improved. And Romario, and he's just said there's no space to get Old Dean in the squad. And I can accept that. But why is Old Dean out instead of, why is Romario in instead of Old Dean? What was the criteria by which to put Romario in over Old Dean? I'm not saying Old Dean should be there instead of Romario. I'm not even arguing that. Because again, like I say, I think it's much of a muchness between the two of them. I just want to know what the rationale was. And I don't think the rationale was truly given to explain why Romario's in and Old Dean is out. I definitely think it should be one or the other when it comes to putting them in a team. But I'm not sure. So all eyes on Romario versus Netherlands and Pakistan. I have never been fully convinced by Romario's bowling. That's me. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it's consistent enough to justify selection. His batting, of course, we know about his batting. We know what he can do in terms of his power hitting late on. But Romario is selected first and foremost to be a bowler, or at least that's my opinion. And I'm just not convinced his bowling is where it needs to be to warrant automatic selection. And if we go a bit deeper, I don't think it's consistent enough to suggest he can be a frontline bowler yet in the international stage. And the same could apply to Old Dean, I hasten to add. So there's a question mark there, and I'm looking for some strong performances from Romario to A, make me shut up, but more importantly, B, justify his position. I mentioned Akil as well in the all-rounder slot, but obviously primarily he's there as a spin bowler. But the reason I mentioned him in the all-round spot is because when quizzed about Fabian Allen's absence from this side, Desmond Haynes' response was, we only want one left-arm spinner. And also when another reporter asked him about Akil, Desmond said that Akil's batting has come on really well. So this is the only conclusion I can draw from that. They think that Akil Hussain is currently a better player than Fabian Allen. I'm not going to answer that, but I am going to throw that out there. Get in the comments below, people. I am going to throw that out there. I wonder where fans stand on that. Looking at that squad on the screen in front of you, is that squad good enough to justify leaving Fabian Allen out? Is it? Obviously, Fabian's just gone IPL and wasted his time again. Played one game, Mumbai stunk out the whole tournament. Fabian could only get a one game. This is why when everyone's out there going, IPL is amazing, by all means, secure the bag. And Fabian secured the bag. And that's ultimately the main thing. Man can eat a food. He can feed his family and his peoples. But I'd love to know from Fabian, so what? Was it really worth it going to just go sit on bench for the 2 months? I don't know. That's the one area where I'm like, as a bit more of a purist in this context, what's the benefit for Fabian there? And now 2-2s, Fabian can't even get in the West Indies ODI squad. Is Akil Hussain a better player than Fabian Allen? Fabian's stock has dropped, It's like no one don't want to put ratings on Fabian's name. Obviously, he's had the injuries, but it's like people have forgotten what Fabian Allen can do with the bat and how explosive he can be. And let's not treat Fabian's left arm spin like it's some part-time thing. He's really worked on that. But I also get Desmond's rationale. He doesn't want 2 left arm spinners in the squad. They're both effectively doing the same thing. So to him, it's like you're not dropping Akil because he's effectively a frontline left arm spinner. And Akil's batting has come on so well that it doesn't justify getting Fabian in as well. I get it. I get the rationale. I could almost even agree with the rationale, but I just feel uncomfortable with the idea that Fabian Allen doesn't fit into our best 15 of an ODI touring squad. I don't feel comfortable with that idea. I feel like it's a bit of a disrespect to Fabian to not be able to make the best 15. But it is what it is. Again, get in your comments below. Let me know what you think about that. And then moving on to the fast bowlers. So Alzari Joseph, no, let's not talk on Alzari. Everyone who follows this, anyone who's a student of the West Indies game, Alzari is our go-to seam bowler in white ball cricket, in ODI cricket. So that doesn't need to be questioned. We know what Alzari can do. Fine. You should or will remember, people, that versus India, Kemar Roach was called back to the ODI squad because Desi spoke about the fact that we have a dearth of strike bowlers. Now, Kemar has obviously picked up an injury whilst playing for Surrey. He's flown back home to Barbados. He's not included in the Pride squad for the 4-day championship. He's not fit enough to go to Netherlands and Pakistan. So this has then opened up a berth to look at some other strike bowlers. And the players that have travelled are Anderson Phillip, Sherman Lewis, and Jayden Seales. So, let me just, 1 second, people. I want to just look at some stats before I say what I'm going to say here. I want to try and find our squad that played there. So, let's deal with the Jayden Seales thing first, because I think the Jayden Seales pick is the most obvious one. And I am expecting Jayden Seales to feature play from the start alongside Alzari Joseph. Some might say workload, and is it the right time to blood Jayden into the white ball team as well? Remember, Jayden was selected for the Ireland series and didn't play a game. I can't remember. I don't think he went to India. So for me, Jayden and Anderson Phillip will be battling to be the strike bowler partner of Alzari Joseph. I don't know if they're going to play 3 strike bowlers. I like I say, I'm not ready yet to look at the composition of the team, but Jayden and Anderson Phillip are in like the driver's seat to partner Alzari Joseph. I don't know if it's one or if it's both of them. And I think I get that. Again, Anderson Phillip's been in and around squads, test match squads, ODI squads. So again, or white ball squads. So again, I get it. I kind of get why Anderson Phillip is being considered as well. I still think Anderson's a touch too expensive. I think he can be a touch too erratic with his bowling. But again, with someone like an Anderson Phillip, if you don't give him a game, you're not going to know. And sorry, people. And you can't just keep carrying people in squads and they never get a game. So again, if you're going to carry an Anderson Phillip, I'd like to see him get a game, particularly on the Netherlands stretch of the tour. But my gut instinct tells me Alzari Joseph and Jayden Seales are going to be taking the new ball. Sherman Lewis is an interesting pick because I don't know what they have used as their justification to get Sherman in. Sherman, in fact, I'll read you what Desi said about Sherman. In fact, the bowlers in general. Desi said, we also have a very good group of young fast bowlers who have demonstrated their ability, and we want to use these 2 tours to give them opportunities in the 50-over format. We have a week in the Netherlands and then another week in Pakistan, and this should provide them with quality opposition to bowl against as you build to the World Cup in 2023. Phillip has been around for some time, and we know what he can offer. Correct. Seales has been very good in Test cricket. Correct. And then he says about Lewis, and Lewis is making a return to the West Indies setup following some good performances. Now, those good performances Desi must be talking about is what Lewis was doing in the early rounds of the 4-day championship earlier this year in February and early March. And that's it. Because I don't know what else he's talking about. It has to just be that. It has to be that they've looked at the 4-day championship and they said, right, which young bowlers have impressed, or which bowlers, fast bowlers, have impressed us in those first 2 rounds of the 4-day championship. Let's get them involved. I think Lewis also went as part of the white ball camp, that prep white ball camp as well. I need to double check if he was there. So that can be the only reason Sherman Lewis is there, because we haven't had any significant 50-over cricket in the region since Super 50 in February 2021. So what white ball cricket have the Sherman wasn't included in CPL. So what white ball cricket could they have used as justification for Sherman Lewis's selection? This is purely, surely based off what he produced for Windward in the early rounds of the 4-day championship. That's fine. I've got no real consternation with that, because again, remember what Desmond Haynes has said, just because you play one format of cricket doesn't mean it rules you out of a next format of cricket. I think Desmond's take is very much a good cricketer is a good cricketer. So give Sherman a go, yes. And if he gets a game, good luck to Sherman, and maybe he can cement his place. But I see why people would have considered Sherman Lewis a bit of a wild card selection and something that has come out of the blue. And then finally, Hayden Walsh Jr. Again, I don't know where people stand on Hayden Walsh Jr. I'm fairly certain there'll be some people listening to this saying, how is Hayden Walsh still in the round? He's not consistent enough. Hayden played versus India. He played one game versus India, took 2 wickets at 29. But he got the one game only out of the 3. He wasn't in the squad versus Ireland. And the reason why I bring those 2 things up is in many ways, that sums up Hayden Walsh's career. In one squad, out of a next squad. When he is in a squad, he gets a one game, doesn't play the other games. What is clear in terms of Cricket West Indies thinking and selectors thinking is that they still consider Hayden Walsh to be the premier leg spinner in the Caribbean. Again, I'm fine with that. I'm sure it's open up to debate. I'm sure people could throw me some other names that we should be considering in terms of leg spinners in the Caribbean. But right now, they still consider Hayden Walsh the premier one. And based on what Desi said in the press conference, they essentially were seen to be acknowledging that leg spin is a difficult art, and that you almost have to back your leg spinner and have faith in your leg spinner. Well, if that's the case, we haven't been doing that with Hayden. A man can't develop confidence on the international stage when he's not seen as a regular, and on tour he's getting a one game if he's lucky, and if he gets that one game, he almost has to try and bowl amazingly because he may not get the next game otherwise. I have no issue with Hayden Walsh Jr. being there, but if we're going to pick him, use him. Now, I'd like to assume that when we go to Pakistan, they are going to use him. They probably won't use him versus the Netherlands. But by the end of this double tour and the 6 ODIs, provided they all have a close to them and all overs are bowled, etc., we better have a significant body of work from Hayden to make an ultimate decision about what we want to do with Hayden Walsh Jr., because we are flip-flopping this man's career. And it's no coincidence to me that if Hayden has a lack of faith in his ability, well, of course he would do, because we don't show him that we've got faith in his ability. So let's use him, please, would be my take on it. And then just wrapping up finally, people, I said it would be 30 minutes, but it's run to 40. You lot know how I do. Hopefully, though, for those who've stuck with it, it's been the usual kind of comprehensive analysis and what you would expect from the Caribbean Cricket Podcast when looking at things. Finally, there's some names missing. Roston Chase bowled really well in India in the ODI series, bowled really, really well, and in the T20 series as well. Just bringing up his Roston Chase bowled really well in the T20 series, I should say. Sorry, I nearly got the wrong information there, versus India. And I asked, trying to get my words here. I asked Desmond Haynes, so why is Roston missing from the ODI tours, given how well he bowled in India in the T20s, and arguably he bowled all right versus Ireland as well. And I liked Desmond's answer, and this also applies to Darren Bravo, who is now dropped as well. And Desmond said, listen, the reality of the situation is neither Chase or Bravo are producing with the bat. That's their primary suit. And Desmond said, my thing is, if you aren't producing in your primary suit, you need to go back to first-class cricket and find your form again. You see that? That was music to my ears. That was music to my ears. I want my lead selector saying, I have to drop a man because his form's not good enough on the international stage. Go play for your regional side, sub-regional side, and go make some runs. Love that. Love to hear that. And that's the message that needs to be sent to every single man in the West Indies team that comes into the international circuit, starts flopping and loses their form. No more picking them for the sake of picking them and saying they're eventually going to come good. Drop a man and tell him to go find some form with Barbados, with Trinidad, with Jamaica, with Leeward, with Windward, with Guyana, etc. Tell them to go find form. And that was possibly the best thing that Desmond said in the whole press conference, because we have to end something that I felt had taken root over the last 3 years, where we just reward failure. We just reward failure, and then we wonder why people aren't producing better performances. So yes, that's something I want to see going forward. So that's just why, for those of you listening to this, if you're wondering, where's Chase? Where's Bravo? They're being dropped. That's where they are. Ladies and gents, that's my analysis of the ODI squad selected to tour both the Netherlands and Pakistan. Like I say, I will be out in the Netherlands for all 3 games. I will be in the Netherlands from the 30th of May all the way through, I think it's the 4th or the 5th of June, covering every single game. You're going to see live videos, you're going to see live interviews with anybody who's around there. Anyone who's in the Netherlands, hoodies will be on sale. Anybody who wants me to cover anything in particular whilst out in the Netherlands, drop it in the comments below. And like I kind of said at the start, none of this stuff that I'll be doing comes cheap. Trust me, I don't have the money to be doing this. I've gone out there for the love of the game, and because the Netherlands is essentially around the corner in the context of the UK, you can jump on a train and get there. So if you do want to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast and what we do head to our Patreon. Do drop us a little £2, $2, whatever it might be, just to help support the cause, and that will help get the content out there. As things currently stand, the Netherlands series has no TV carrier, particularly if you're in the UK. I don't know about other countries. There probably will be one for other countries, but in the UK, there is no TV carrier. So some of the content that I will be doing will probably be the only content you'll be getting in terms of live content out of the Netherlands, because it is not a series that's going to have many journalists going there at all. But like I say, that's been a video covering the West Indies ODI squad touring both the Netherlands and the Pakistan. Pakistan. Like the video, subscribe to the video before you go, and drop some comments in the comments below. And of course, the one thing of all, share it with your peoples. I've been Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and this has been the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.